Everyone wants bigger arms, and most people spend years doing the same curls and pushdowns without ever understanding why their arms refuse to grow. That was the exact situation for years, blessed with genuinely thin arms and convinced that more sets of the same exercises would eventually solve the problem. They did not. What actually changed arm growth was understanding which muscles needed to be targeted and how to load them at the right position. Today, we are covering 4 exercises selected based on the latest research that together target every arm muscle for the fastest possible growth. Starting with the biceps and the most important principle that most arm training completely ignores and that directly explains why most curls produce disappointing results. A standard standing dumbbell curl is hardest in the middle of the movement, around 90 degrees of elbow flexion, when the weight is most difficult to lift. New research suggests that for maximum muscle growth, you want exercises that challenge the target muscle closest to its fully stretched position at the bottom. A 2023 study compared incline curls, which are hardest in the middle, against preacher curls, which are hardest at the bottom in the stretched position. After 9 weeks, preacher curls produced more growth at every measurement site, with especially pronounced development in the lower portion of the bicep specifically. Similar findings have emerged in research on the hamstrings, quads, and triceps, making the stretch position principle one of the most reliable and transferable concepts in modern hypertrophy science. The first exercise is the preacher curl, and the way you perform it significantly affects how much growth you actually stimulate per set completed. The biceps function to both flex the arm and rotate the wrist inward, so start each rep with a neutral grip and rotate your palm upward as you curl. This supination engages the bicep more completely throughout the full range of motion compared to keeping a fixed grip throughout the entire repetition. Your arm should be almost fully extended at the bottom of each rep, which means training in a position most people have never deliberately trained their biceps in before. Start with lighter weight in the 10 to 20 rep range initially, and gradually progress to heavier weight in the 8 to 12 rep range over several weeks. The second exercise targets not just the biceps, but 2 additional arm muscles that contribute significantly to overall arm thickness and fullness from every angle. The brachioradialis is the largest muscle of the forearm, and the brachialis sits between the biceps and triceps and can meaningfully thicken the entire upper arm when developed. A neutral grip during curling movements aligns the brachioradialis better with the direction of the movement and theoretically reduces bicep involvement while increasing brachialis activation. The hammer preacher curl applies both the neutral grip and the stretch position principle simultaneously, making it a highly efficient choice for developing these 2 muscles together. Perform these exactly like the preacher curl, but maintain the neutral hammer grip throughout, rather than supinating at the top of each repetition. Begin lighter for higher reps in the 10 to 20 range and progress to heavier loads in the 8 to 12 rep range over time. If this exercise causes discomfort in the tendons, even at lighter weights, substitute behind-the-body hammer cable curls, which still challenges these muscles in the stretched position with less joint stress. Now moving to the triceps, which make up approximately 2/3 of total arm size, making them more important than the biceps for overall arm development. The triceps has 3 heads, and the critical insight most people never learn is that these 3 heads do not respond equally to the same exercises. The bench press develops the lateral and medial heads reasonably well, but produces virtually 0 growth in the long head, which is the largest of the 3. This is because the long head is the only tricep head that crosses the shoulder joint, and pressing movements do not place it in a sufficient stretch. A study tested what happened when subjects added skull crushers to their bench press program compared to just bench pressing alone without any direct tricep isolation work.
Adding skull crushers produced no additional lateral head growth, but significantly more long head growth, confirming that pressing movements cannot replace targeted long head training. Research by Mayo and colleagues then compared tricep overhead extensions against tricep pushdowns directly to determine which approach better develops the long head of the tricep. After 12 weeks, the overhead extension group experienced approximately 1.5 times more long head growth than the pushdown group from the same training volume. Interestingly, even the lateral and medial heads grew significantly more in the overhead extension group, despite not being in a stretched position during that movement. The third exercise is any overhead tricep extension variation that allows comfortable joint loading and consistent progressive overload over weeks and months of training. Options include the rope overhead extension, the single-arm cable overhead extension, dumbbell skull crushers, or barbell skull crushers, depending on equipment availability and personal joint comfort. Aim for 10 to 15 repetitions per set, using moderate weight that allows full range of motion throughout the entire lengthened position at the bottom. The fourth exercise targets the lateral and medial tricep heads that overhead extensions train less directly due to those heads not being in a stretched position during the movement. For people whose pressing movements have always been relatively weak, the lateral head can lag significantly behind, and dedicated direct work makes a meaningful difference to overall arm shape. A cross-body cable extension, discovered from a biomechanics expert, provides both a stretch and a challenge to the lateral head at the beginning of the movement. Grab a cable with one hand facing away from the machine and let the cable come across your opposite shoulder with your arm positioned in front and across your body. Simply extend your arm while keeping your elbow locked in position and squeeze the lateral head at full extension before controlling back to the stretched starting position. Aim for 10 to 15 repetitions per set with a weight that challenges the target muscle without requiring momentum or compromised elbow position to complete each rep. If cables are unavailable, close grip push-ups or the dumbbell JM press work as effective alternatives for targeting the lateral and medial heads through a pressing pattern. The JM press is essentially what you would get if skull crushers and close grip dumbbell presses combined into one movement, targeting these specific heads simultaneously. Lower the dumbbells toward your neck while sliding your elbows forward until your forearms are parallel with the floor at the full bottom position. Use lighter weight for 15 to 20 controlled repetitions, since this exercise is more demanding on the elbow joint than standard pressing movements typically are. These 4 exercises together cover every major arm muscle, including both bicep heads, the brachialis, the brachioradialis, and all 3 tricep heads in an efficient weekly program. Perform these either distributed throughout the week on different training days or combined into a single dedicated arm session, depending on your current training structure and schedule. The research behind these selections provides a genuine edge in terms of exercise selection and muscle loading, but nothing here replaces the foundational requirements. Training hard enough to genuinely challenge your muscles, sleeping enough to allow recovery, and eating enough protein to support muscle building are prerequisites, not optional additions. The science optimizes the approach. The consistency and the fundamentals are what actually produce the arms that everything here is working toward building over time.